Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to the end of April recap. Hard to believe another month has already gone by, so now we're going to recap it all. I thought about streaming this recap live, but I want to do a test stream first to see how my system can handle it. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the recap on the games. And first up, we're going to start with the first half of the spring campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. For the spring campaign in Arkham Horror, the card game, we're doing Dream Eaters this year. We're actually at exactly the halfway point of the campaign, as the Dreamers have been through their first two scenarios, and we just had the second scenario for the Waking Investigators on Sunday's video, which was uploaded Monday morning. The campaign's been going very well for the most part. I think both sides have picked up... I think Jenny and Luke picked up 13 experience total, and Sister Mary and Trish have 17 total. But Sister Mary and Trish did both pick up their first traumas for the campaign. Sister Mary's was physical, and Trish's was mental. So we may have to spend some experience to clear their trauma. Trish's, I'm a lot less... I feel like I need to clear Trish's less than I need to clear Sister Mary's. But I'm using for the upgrades video coming up. That'll probably be sometime next week, I'm thinking right now. Anyway, that's it for the spring campaign to this point. Next up, we're going to move into the Wednesday games. First up, we played Lucidity, Six-Sided Nightmares. Lucidity, Six-Sided Nightmares from Foxtail Games is a dice chucker where you're dumped into the world of dreams, and you have to try to survive the whatever nightmare you're facing off with. We played against the Lady of Primeval Fear twice. We went 1-1 in those two games. We lost the first one pretty handily, and then survived the second one. It's a very quick game that I actually like, and I do enjoy the fast flow on this one. We were also playing with the Bone Hunters expansion, which adds an element of danger to the game as well, where if the Bone Hunters come out of the bag, you have to face them. You can't send those back. So you might potentially end up with more dice to roll than normal, especially if you get into a situation where you've got multiple nightmares waking up on you. So something you do need to strategize for a little bit. Anyway, that's it for Lucidity Six-Sided Nightmares. Next up, we had our first ever football game on the channel, as we played Glory Days Pro Football from Sideline Strategy Games. Glory Days Pro Football from Sideline Strategy Games, just like it sounds, is a football simulator. It's actually a fairly simple simulator. You've got 2d6 that you roll for trench control, then it's a d20 for the play call, and then it's 2d10 for the results of the play. We were playing from the 1985 season as we played Green Bay at Chicago from the 1985 season, which, with pretty much any divisional alignment you have in the NFL, those two have always been division rivals. With Chicago, we were up 28-0 at the end of the first half, which is where I called the game. I was expecting it to be a little bit faster than it turned out to be. This will probably make better Sunday content, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, that's it for Glory Days Football. Next up after football, we moved to the World War II Pacific Ocean as we moved into game number 3 on my TAC Up Wargaming list with Mag-23 Guadalcanal from Historic Wings. Mag-23 Guadalcanal from Historic Wings, as I mentioned, is a narrative-focused game that's set in the battle for Guadalcanal in the Pacific during World War II. It's got a very heavy narrative focus, which I really enjoy on that. I may try to do some write-ups in the future on the actual missions, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, I do really enjoy watching the story unfold, even if I briefly called BS on Shadow picking up 4 kills on the day. Turns out that is historically accurate, even if I had trouble believing that. But it ended up being another win on the day, and it's a guaranteed win on the week. So I'm hoping the next time this gets to the channel, that'll be a short video so I can let the squadron rest a little bit. Last up for the month, we had our first racing game on the channel as we played Heat Pedal to the Metal from Days of Wonder. Days of Wonder, or Heat Pedal to the Metal from Days of Wonder, just like it sounds, is a racing game. I normally don't go much for racing games, but I did really enjoy this one. It was right about at that hour mark, which I really like when it comes to Wednesday content. I could definitely see putting a championship of this game on the channel. That would probably be Sunday content and or multiple Wednesdays potentially, but remains to be seen on that. As far as the actual race goes, we were racing on the USA track, and we actually managed to steal that race despite being in last place for most of it. So I really like that it's got kind of I wouldn't say it's a catch-up mechanic necessarily, but it's definitely a bit easier to strategize in terms of how the race goes and whether or not you can pull that out of the fire or not. But that's it for the games. Next up, let's recap Mystical Munchies. This month on Mystical Munchies, we were cooking out of the Dungeon Meister cookbook, and here's how the recipes turned out. For the appetizer, we made remarkably movable rods, which was candied bacon. The bacon actually turned out to be really good. It was a bit on the sweeter side. I think it was a bit sweeter than I'm normally used to, but it was still really good. As for the side, we had the marshmallow golems with the sweet potato casserole bites. With this one, I accidentally started a fire in the stove, with the marshmallows coming a little bit too close to the broiler unit, because I had the top shelf of the in the stove too close to the broiler, and I didn't expect the marshmallows to rise as high as they did. So that was an interesting morning. But we did manage to salvage one for the taste test. Unfortunately, the bites turned out to be bland on the taste test. So if I was to make a redo month, I don't think I'd throw this one in there, because I normally reserve redo month for something that seemed like it had potential, but there's something that I kind of liked, but something went wrong with the recipe. So while something went wrong with the sweet potato casserole bites, I'm not going to redo them. Next up, we had the entree, which is the Diamond Soul Food, aka loaded breakfast biscuits. These did taste pretty good, but given that the recipe wants you to serve them warm, I don't trust them as leftovers, and historically, bread does not usually warm up very well in the microwave, so that's another reason I didn't trust the Diamond Soul Food as leftovers. As for the dessert, we had the Touch of Death, which were Bones of the Dead cookies. These turned out to be a very frustrating recipe to work with. It ended up being a crumbly mess during the preparation process. Now, toward the end of the recipe, I was expecting it to be crumbly, but I wasn't expecting it to be crumbly this early. I was expecting it to be a little bit more solid. And I don't think we were helped by how the mix was going, how one of the initial mixes was going with the stand mixer. It got to the point where we couldn't even finish this recipe. So that's it for Mystical Munchies. We're going to blow through Ask Me Anything with a brief reminder on how to get a question on for Ask Me Anything. First of all, if this is your first recap, welcome to the channel. Second of all, the Ask Me Anything segment is a segment where you can ask me questions, and as long as I don't deem them too personal, I will answer those questions. Now, what would I consider to be too personal? Just use a little common sense on this. If you wouldn't want it asked of you, don't ask it of me. Probably the simplest advice I can give in terms of how to determine if a question's too personal or not. So the way you're going to get a question on the segment is in any video between now and the last video of the month, the one before the recap, and the recap will usually be within the last 2 to 4 days of the month, depending on when I play the last game for the month. So whenever the last game for the month is, then you can look around that video and see around the last game for the month and be like, okay, if I got something I want to ask for AMA, I should probably get it in before that video. So you'll leave the question in the comments section with an AMA tag, so I'll know it's for the Ask Me Anything segment. And again, as long as it's not too personal, in my opinion, I will answer it. So that's it for Ask Me Anything. Next up, I don't think I mentioned this on the channel yet, but I do want to talk about my current off-channel replay of the 1991 baseball season using Payoff Pitch Baseball. Make no mistake about it, even though this replay of the 1991 baseball season is happening off the channel, it's a project for the channel in every other regard. I'm using this replay to figure out a lot of the logistics around scheduling a replay for the channel, like how long it's going to take, how long each game is going to take with the full ticker, and everything else that goes into a replay. The only reason I'm not doing this replay on the channel, though I do plan to put some random blocks on the channel as another form of testing, is I got sick in the wake of my baseball testing week back in March. But I'm at a point now where I think that bug was caused by up and down temperatures we'd been having around that time. So far, though, things are going very well on this replay, and I think I'll be doing more regular replays on the channel. But this first replay will have a lot to do with how I structure the schedule for the replays on the channel. Now, I'm nowhere near the playoffs for this replay, but we are plenty far along to tab over into Excel and take a look at the standings. So let me see if I can zoom in on this just a touch. There we go. So you can see here that currently the Blue Jays and the Tigers are tied for first place in the American League East based on the winning percentage. I'm going to do a lot of the playoff stuff similar to how RJL does his playoffs, where you're going to have a winning record to get into this. It's going to be the top 3 teams in each division, and each team has to have a winning record or the playoffs will be modified. So 6 will play 5, then the winner of that will play 4 for the wild card tournament, then the wild card champion will play 1, 2 will play 3 in the division series round, then you'll have the winners of the division series advancing to the league championship series, and then the winners of each LCS will advance to the World Series. I do plan to put the World Series on the channel, but it'll remain to be seen when that's coming up, and I'll mention when that replays and when we're getting to that point. So, moving down to the AL West, we've got the Chicago White Sox tied with Oakland in terms of wins, but based on winning percentage, the White Sox are currently ahead, and they've both won once on the board. I forgot to mention that I'm also using board wins. I'm using board record and runs on the board as my main tiebreakers. So back up to the AL East, we see Toronto actually has a better board record than Detroit. So that's why they're in first place right now in the division. The White Sox are currently a game and a half up on the A's despite the formula. It's a somewhat simplistic formula how I got that all set up. We've got the Mariners who are 10 games over 500, as are the Royals, the Twins. Actually, every team in the AL West except for the Angels is over 500 right now. As for the AL East, we see the Red Sox are a game under 500, but as you can see, there's also plenty of baseball to be played. In the NL East, we've got the Pirates up 7 games on the Cardinals in that division. The Mets are in third place right now, but they're under 500, so they've got a bit of work to do. Looking at the NL West, we've got the Dodgers, the Braves, and the Astros all in third place, and the Padres aren't too far behind the Astros. They're 2 games back for third place in the NL West. If the playoffs were to start right now, we would have... Looks like for the NL, we'd have the Mets would be out right now. We'd have 1 through 5, so it looks like it would be... Looks like Houston would be going to St. Louis for the wild card game in the NL. There would be Pittsburgh, LA, and Atlanta as your 1, 2, 3 seed. Actually, I think it would be... No, it would be LA, then Pittsburgh, then St. Louis as your 3 seed. Actually, it would be Atlanta as the 3 seed right now. Looking in the AL, I'm not sure how it would all shake out right now. I think it would be Chicago as the 1 seed. Toronto is the 2 seed by virtue of a better board record. Let's see. Oakland would be the 3 seed. Seattle would be 4, and Detroit would be 5. So right now, Detroit would go to Seattle in the AL wildcard game. So that's how that's all going to shake out. Like I said, the World Series will be on the channel for that once we get there. And that'll be on the same schedule I was intending to do the blocks. So Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday would be the scheduled nights for those. More on that, though, as we get closer to the World Series. Anyway, let's go through what's coming in May. We'll have the second half of the spring campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. Before we get into that, though, we'll have game number 4 on my TACUP Wargaming list for our Victory in Europe Day tradition as we play Black Orchestra from Starling Games. As for Wednesdays, we're going to start off with Terra Mystica. After that, we're going to do another round of baseball testing as we play Inside Pitch and APA Baseball. Now, if you were around during baseball testing back in March, you may remember that I changed out the board and the layout after the video for Inside Pitch. So I'm going to double back and make sure Inside Pitch and APA get tested with the new layout, just so I can see how everything looks. In addition, when we get to APA Baseball, I'm going to try out the new Paul Marino, the Paul Marino boards. They've been around for a while, but they're new to me, so I'm going to try a game with those and see what I think of them. After that, we're going to have another play-along of Cartographers, and then we're going to go back to Mag-23 Guadalcanal from Historic Wings. My plan with Mag-23 Guadalcanal is to eventually get that to a point where I can feature a full week on the channel, but I will be expecting that to be a Sunday video, and that could eventually turn into a campaign. As for Mystical Munchies, we're going to be cooking out of the Star Wars Galactic Baking Cookbook. We'll be cooking Padres Puffs, Puffer Pig Pocket Pizza, say that 5 times fast, Fallon Pasa Cheese Stuffed Sandwich, and Tatooine Sandies. With that, let's wrap this video up. That's the end of April recap. Tomorrow we're playing Terra Mystica. Saturday we'll be starting Mystical Munchies out of the Star Wars Galactic Baking Cookbook with the appetizer, Padres Puffs. And Sunday we're going to play game number 4 on my TACUP Wargaming list as we play Black Orchestra from Starling Games. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.